Hi, my name is Stephanie Little. I'm from Chantal Little Architects in Sydney. I would like to start by thanking the Robin Boyd Foundation for inviting me to talk today about our Glebe House. Our Glebe House was recently shortlisted in the New South Wales Institute of Architects Awards in the New Houses category. I'll share my screen. So the Glebe House was designed for a couple with 3 young children. The inner city site was relatively small, narrow and deep. Despite the site constraints, the client emphasised their requirement for a spacious, light-filled home for their family. The house replaces a single-storey Victorian cottage, which had unfortunately fallen into a state of disrepair, having succumbed to termite infestation and having most of its external cladding replaced with asbestos sheeting. The buildings on the right side of the image are a row of Victorian terraces with elegant arched openings and curved ironwork filigree. The site to the north on the left side of this image contains a 1970s face brick public housing development. The rear of the site was elevated on top of a cliff formed by sandstone quarrying in the 19th century. The neighbouring buildings to the rear were therefore set well below the site, providing our site with panoramic views to the city skyline. Our house was required to be built within strict envelope controls set by the City of Sydney. The clients wanted to maximise the space and light available within the envelope. The major aims of this project were therefore how to design a building which let in adequate light through the relatively narrow side setback zones to the typically dark ground floor, while carefully editing views of the neighbouring dwellings. We really wanted to establish a spatial strategy for our design, which was adequately flexible to allow us to adjust, push and pull as required to achieve these aims, while responding to the various conflicting parameters and developing inputs likely during the design process. Using the arched openings of the neighbouring building as inspiration, we started arranging arched cutouts on the envelope massing to explore spatial opportunities. This folded out roof plan and elevation drawing shows a relationship with the final openings. We realized that an arched geometry could help us to frame and edit views of the surroundings. An upturned arch focused views to the canopies of the trees around the site, which while screening the neighbours' windows, ugly boundary fences and the street at the lower level. An arch could also be pushed and pulled to suit different room sizes and functions. In the bathroom on the first floor, the arched windows are relatively small and have a high sill to conceal the bath. In the bedroom, the windows are larger and extend almost to the floor. In this bedroom, the arched windows stop short to allow room for a study desk. And in the master bedroom, one bedroom window edits the outlook and frames a view to a pine tree. The smaller window aligns with the ensuite. All the bedrooms and the bathrooms have the feeling of being in a tree house within the canopies of the trees, which, given the inner city location, is quite unusual. The arched geometry was highly flexible in both its traditional and inverted forms. The use of arched openings on the rear facade therefore allowed us to apply a consistent and flexible geometry to all facades of the building. This ground floor plan shows the living spaces which open to the rear garden and sandstone outcrops. We needed to ensure that the depth of this ground floor plate received adequate daylight. This first floor plan shows 2 large curved voids cut out over the living and dining spaces to flood the interior with diffuse daylight from the upper levels. On this level, the void separates the master bedroom from the children's 3 bedrooms. Here you can see the 2 curved voids over the living space. The curved voids continue the geometry of the house across its 2 levels. We chose to align the cutouts on the facade with the void cutouts in plan to generate spatial effects from their interrelationship. The voids in plan align with the 2 large double height arched windows along the 2 side boundaries. The 3-dimensional space created between them is therefore reinforced and given a heightened sense of volume, such that it appears that the voids have been scoured out from a solid form. The interrelationship of the openings on the corners also creates spatial effects. These openings dissolve the corners of the space and give the space an aperspectival quality. The apex aligns with the corners to flatten them. These effects are enhanced by the addition of a void above the corner, which starts to dissolve the corner vertically as well as horizontally. In the covered outdoor space, a void is added over the corner and aligns with a cutout in the concrete slab for a planter. Plants will grow through this space, with similar plants also planted outside the wall, further eroding the perception and definition of the space. The materials of the house tie the building to its history and its place. We have used painted weatherboard cladding, which is typical of the workers' cottages in the area. The house is constructed almost entirely of timber, with the exception of the folded steel canopy, which you can see here at the front. This canopy is reminiscent of the traditional fabric awnings and marks the entry to the house. We have chosen to make the boarding vertical and thinner than traditional wide horizontal boards. The rescaling of the boards abstracts them and emphasizes their textural qualities and the vertical proportions of the building and its openings. The large arched windows are only possible due to recent technological advances in window manufacture and material development. We needed to work closely with the window fabricator and builder to develop details and fine-tune them for our project. We prepared 3D drawing files of the windows, which were then sent to the window fabricator and builder. A computer-controlled cutting machine then cut out the individual components. Each window was fabricated in large sections, which were then craned into place and assembled on site. We worked with a structural engineer to ensure that the mullions were adequately sized and spaced to withstand lateral wind loads. The mullions were also spaced to suit the width of the Anita windows, which we have incorporated within these for ventilation. We painted the windows white to match the traditional timber boarding colour used in the area. By painting the internal and external boarding and window frames the same colour, we abstract them such that the focus is more on their spatial relationship and effects than their formal reading. The curves used in the design continue to the level of the joinery details. The plan incorporates concave and convex curves. The curved voids on the top floor complement the concave timber niches in the hallway for the client's sculpture. It was important that the details are not seen as isolated elements divorced from the overall strategy, but are intrinsic to them. In the image on the right, you can see that the scallops at the top of the frosted windows echo the form of the Victorian lace on the balconies behind. The ceiling over the void is slatted for acoustic attenuation, and the balustrade returns on itself and continues to the wall so it reads as a separate element to the timber panelling. So we began with a framework which was infinitely flexible to allow us to respond to planning, detailing, functional and aesthetic requirements as they arose throughout the design process. The final design is compact and prioritizes communal spaces and adopts an overarching spatial strategy that results in a single expression and experience for our clients. I would now like to briefly talk about one of our favourite shortlisted projects in this year's Institute Awards. The Waterloo House by Anthony Gill is a delightful alterations and additions project in Sydney. What we particularly liked about this project is its lightness of touch. The new additions are restrained, and the rawness of the existing aged building fabric enhances rather than detracts from the final design. So thank you.